The silent alien girl. The camp was full of noise. Fires burned in broken barrels, children cried in the shadows, and the smell of smoke and dust filled the air. Human soldiers walked carefully between ruined tents, carrying weapons on their backs. This was not a safe place. It was a place of survivors, aliens who had lost everything in the war. Among them was one girl. She sat near a half-broken wall, her head low, her hands clutching a small cloth bundle. Unlike the others, she did not cry. She did not beg. She did not even look at the soldiers who passed by. She only sat still, like a stone left behind after a storm. Her skin was pale blue, with faint silver lines that shimmered when the firelight touched her. Her eyes, large and dark, seemed full of stories she refused to tell. She wore clothes torn from escape, dust covering every corner. Yet, in her hands, she held the bundle tightly, as if it was her life. Most thought she was mute. Days passed in silence and no one ever heard her speak. But the human soldier noticed her. His name was Captain Arden. He was not the strongest soldier in the camp, but he was the kind who watched carefully. He had seen villages burn, ships fall from the sky, and people lose hope. And in this girl's quiet presence he felt something strange, something different. One night, while the camp was restless, Captain Arden saw her again. She was sitting near the edge of the firelight, her bundle on her lap. He walked closer, and the other aliens moved away. Some were afraid of soldiers, others simply did not care. But she did not move at all. "What are you holding?" Arden asked. His voice was calm, not commanding. The girl slowly raised her eyes. She did not answer. Arden waited. Most would have left, but he stayed still. He could see her thin fingers gripping the bundle, protecting it from the world. Slowly, carefully, she opened it. Inside were dried herbs, small seeds, and a few tiny glass jars filled with colored powders. Spices. Arden blinked. In a world of war, when people clung to food, water, or weapons, this girl carried spices. The girl looked at him, her lips pressed together. For a long time, silence ruled between them. Then, in a voice so soft it was almost a whisper, she spoke. "I don't talk much, human," she said. Her words were broken, but clear enough. "But I can cook." The soldier was stunned. He had expected fear, anger, maybe even silence forever, but not this. Around them, others began to laugh. The aliens who heard shook their heads. "Cook? What use is that now? We starve, we fight, and she thinks of food?" One said bitterly. But Arden did not laugh. He only studied her face. She was not joking. Her eyes carried no weakness. There was only determination, small but sharp like a hidden flame. "You can cook?" Arden asked again. She nodded once. Yes. The campfire cracked between them. The smell of smoke filled the night, but still Arden thought he smelled something else, something faint, coming from the bundle she carried. A memory of warmth, of home. The soldier looked around. The refugees were tired, hopeless, waiting only for the next attack. Soldiers ate cold rations, tasteless blocks that filled the stomach but killed the soul. Maybe, just maybe, this girl's strange gift could do something. "What will you cook with?" he asked. She lowered her gaze, her fingers brushing over the herbs. "Anything," she whispered. "Give me fire. Give me water. Give me scraps. I will make food. Not just food. Something that gives life." Her voice trembled, but not from fear. It was something else. Hope. Arden stood quietly, his heart heavy with questions. Why did she care so much about cooking in a world of war? Why protect spices while her people died? And why did her voice carry such weight, even in its weakness? The night grew darker, and the stars above were covered by smoke. But Arden felt something had changed. He did not know what, but he knew this girl was not ordinary. She was silent, yes. She carried no weapon, no armor. But inside her bundle, inside her voice, there was something powerful. And when she said again, "I can cook," it sounded less like an offer and more like a secret that could change everything. The soldier stared at her, the fire reflecting in his eyes. For the first time in weeks, he felt curiosity. He wanted to see what she could do. He wanted to test the truth behind those simple words the silent alien girl had spoken. And now nothing would be the same. The offer. The next morning, the camp woke to the same hopeless rhythm. Soldiers sharpening blades, children crying for food, elders staring at the dust with empty eyes. Nothing ever changed. But for Captain Arden, something was different. He could not forget the girl's words from the night before. "I don't talk much, human, but I can cook." The sentence played again and again in his mind. It was strange. It was foolish. Yet it was unforgettable. He found himself looking for her. She was there, sitting in the same quiet spot, her bundle of spices wrapped tight in her lap. Her eyes lifted for only a moment when she saw him, then dropped again as if waiting for rejection. Arden crouched in front of her. "You said you could cook." The girl nodded slowly. She did not explain. She did not beg. She only nodded. The soldier glanced around. The campfire smoked with burned wood, but no food was cooking. Humans ate tasteless ration bars. The aliens chewed hard, dry roots. Nothing warm, nothing comforting. Just fuel to survive another day. "Show me," Arden said. For the first time. The girl's fingers moved quickly. She unwrapped her bundle, spreading out tiny jars of colored powder and dry herbs. The other aliens noticed. Their laughter from last night turned into murmurs. "What is this?" One old alien scoffed. "Does she think flavor matters when we starve?" Another shook his head. "A waste of time. She is still a child, playing with ashes." But Arden ignored them. His soldier's hand reached into his pack, pulling out what little he had. Half a loaf of dry human bread, a piece of dried meat, and a flask of water. Worthless scraps. Nothing more. The girl studied them like a treasure. Her dark eyes lit up faintly. She gathered sticks, placed a small iron pot on the fire, and dropped the scraps inside. At first, there was only smoke. But then, slowly, the air began to change. The smell rose. Not the bitter smoke of burning wood, not the stink of war, but something warm, something alive. The dried meat softened, the bread dissolved into thick broth, and her hands sprinkled the powders with careful grace. One spark of spice, another touch of herbs. The camp grew silent. Even the children stopped crying. The girl stirred quietly, her face calm, her body moving as though she had done this 1,000 times. The steam rose in soft waves, carrying a scent no one in the camp had felt for weeks. Home. Arden leaned closer. His soldier's heart, hardened by years of battle, felt something break inside. A memory stirred. His mother's kitchen back on Earth. Warm soup in winter. The laughter of family. The girl looked up. "Food is not only to fill the belly," she whispered. "It gives memory. It gives strength. It tells you, you are still alive." Arden's throat tightened. He had never heard anyone speak like this. "Try," she said simply, holding the pot forward. He took the spoon, dipped it in, and tasted. The flavor was soft, but deep. The meat was tender, the broth thick, the herbs sharp, but comforting. It was not perfect, but it was alive, more alive than anything he had eaten since the war began. The human soldier froze. Around him. The others watched, first in silence, then in disbelief. One of the human privates stepped closer, drawn by the smell. A starving alien child tugged at her mother's hand. Soon more gathered. Arden passed the spoon to the child. She took a sip and smiled. A real smile, one not seen in weeks. The crowd gasped softly. It was not just food, It was hope made liquid. The girl pulled the pot closer, again guarding it like treasure. "I told you," she whispered, "I can cook." The words were quiet, but they carried through the camp like thunder. Arden's eyes narrowed. He now understood. She was no ordinary refugee. This girl carried something greater than survival. She carried culture, memory, and strength, all inside. Her bundle of spices. But then his soldier's mind sharpened. Hope was dangerous. If her food could change hearts here, then enemies would notice too. A cooking fire in the wrong night could attract death. He leaned closer to her. "Why do you do this? Why risk carrying spices when others carry weapons?" Her eyes turned distant. For a moment, he thought she would not answer. But then she whispered, "Because my people believed food is life. My family, and they cooked for kings, for warriors, for peace. I cannot fight with weapons, but I can fight with this." She touched her pot gently. "I cook, so others remember who they are." Arden felt the weight of her words. She was fragile, silent, small. Yet in her own way she was stronger than many soldiers. The aliens who mocked her fell quiet. The humans who doubted her leaned closer. Something invisible had shifted. The girl sat back staring at the steaming pot. "I don't ask for much, just fire, just water, just scraps, but if you let me, I will cook. Every day." Arden studied her face. The war outside the camp was endless. The people here were broken. But this one girl, silent and strange, was offering something priceless. The soldier's lips curved into a faint smile. He had made his decision. "Then cook," he said firmly. "And let's see what happens next." The girl nodded once, her eyes shining faintly in the firelight. She had made her offer. He had accepted. The night air carried the scent of something new, something greater than survival. Hope was cooking. And none of them knew what price it would bring. The first taste. The pot sat on the fire, steam rising into the cold air. The camp, once restless and filled with complaints, now stood strangely quiet. Everyone's eyes followed the small alien girl, and her cooking. Captain Arden was the first to taste. The broth still warmed his tongue, filling his chest with something he could not name. It was not just food. It was memory. It was comfort. For a moment he forgot the endless war outside the camp. But Arden was a soldier, trained not to trust feelings. He needed proof. He passed the spoon to the child beside him. The little girl sipped, and her eyes widened. A smile appeared on her thin face, the first true smile anyone in the camp had seen for weeks. The mother gasped softly and touched her child's cheek. Tears welled in her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "May she have more?" The silent cook nodded once. She ladled, another spoonful, offering it with steady hands. Soon others stepped forward. Hungry soldiers, tired refugees, even the skeptical aliens who mocked her before. Each one took a taste. Each one fell silent after the first sip. No one spoke because no words were enough. The food was simple, scraps and water. Yet in her hands, it became something alive. Something that reminded them of who they were before the war stole everything. And slowly, the camp changed. The laughter of children returned first, small and fragile. Then voices rose, softer, kinder. A soldier shared his ration bread with a refugee for the first time. Two aliens, once divided by old tribal hate, sat together near the fire. All because of a pot of soup. Captain Arden watched with careful eyes. He knew morale could save or destroy an army. He had seen men fight harder for hope than for orders, and now this girl was creating hope out of nothing. She herself did not eat. She only stirred the pot quietly, watching others take their first real meal in weeks. Her face remained calm, almost expressionless, but her dark eyes glowed faintly, like embers hidden in ash. Finally, Arden crouched beside her again. "You've done something I could not," he said in a low voice. "You've made them remember they are alive." The girl did not look at him, she only whispered, This is what food should do. Not just fill the belly, it must feed the soul. Arden felt a chill run through him. He had never thought of food as anything more than fuel. But here in this broken camp, she was showing him a power he had never understood. Still, he was wary. Power always came with danger. As the last bowls were scraped clean, murmurs spread through the camp. Soldiers whispered that the alien girl carried some forgotten gift. Refugees prayed softly in their old tongue, calling her the Flame Keeper. But not all eyes looked kindly. In the shadows, a scarred alien man scowled. "Foolish tricks," he muttered. "Food cannot change the war, she will only bring trouble." He turned away, but his gaze lingered with bitterness. Arden noticed. Suspicion in one man could spread like poison. The soldier leaned closer to the girl. "Do you know what you are risking? If word spreads, others will come. Enemies too." The girl finally met his eyes. For the first time, her voice was firm. "Let them come, I will still cook. If I can make them taste life, maybe they will stop killing." Arden studied her face. She was young, fragile, but in her heart, there was iron stronger than steel. The night grew deeper. One by one, the people fell asleep, their bellies full, their dreams softer. The campfire burned low. Only Arden and the girl remained awake. "Who taught you?" Arden asked. The girl's fingers touched the little jars of spices. Her voice trembled, slightly. "My family. We were royal cooks. We fed kings, warriors, healers. Food was our weapon and our gift. My world is gone, but I carry the last taste of it here." She held up the bundle. "This is all I have left." Arden nodded slowly. Now he understood why she carried spices while others carried knives. To her, this was more than survival. It was her entire history. But before he could speak again, a sound cracked the night. A branch snapped. A shadow moved at the edge of the camp. Arden's soldier instincts sharpened instantly. He grabbed his rifle, eyes scanning the darkness. The girl froze, clutching her bundle. Another sound. Low voices whispering. Not from inside the camp. From outside. Arden's heart tightened. Someone had smelled the food. The taste of hope had reached more than just the camp. "Stay close," he whispered, rising to his feet. The girl stood too, silent but steady. Her eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, her hands gripping her herbs. She did not look afraid. But Arden knew. This was only the beginning. Her cooking had brought warmth tonight, but it might also bring enemies tomorrow. As the wind carried the last trace of spice into the night, unseen figures moved closer, drawn by the first taste. The true test of her gift was about to begin. The hidden past. The night was restless. The camp slept, but Captain Arden stayed awake with his rifle in hand. He had heard whispers in the darkness, footsteps just beyond the reach of the firelight. Someone, or something, had been watching. The alien girl sat near the dying flames. Her bundle of spices clutched tightly in her arms. She did not sleep either. Her large, dark eyes watched the shadows, calm but alert, as if she had always lived with danger. Finally, when the night grew quieter, Arden sat beside her. "Who are you, really?" he asked, in a low voice. The girl looked at the fire, not at him. For a long time she said nothing. Arden waited, patient as always. Then slowly, she opened the bundle and touched one of the small jars inside. "This is saffron root," she whispered. "Very rare on my planet. It glows faintly when cooked, like golden fire. My mother used it when the king was ill." One bowl of soup and he rose from his bed stronger. Arden studied the faint sparkle of the dried powder. "So your family cooked for rulers?" The girl nodded. Her voice grew softer. "We were royal cooks. My father was master of the kitchens. My mother created dishes that healed sickness. My brothers prepared feasts for warriors before battle. Food was not only food. It was honor, medicine, and peace. To share a meal was to share trust. Her eyes dimmed. But then the war came. The palace burned, soldiers killed without mercy. My family. Her voice cracked for the first time. They died in the kitchens, protecting the fire. I ran, carrying only these. Her hands closed tightly around the jars. This is all that remains of them. My heritage, my people, my past. Arden felt a heavy silence fall between them. He had seen many refugees, many survivors, but never one who carried her entire world inside a bundle of spices. You risk your life for this? He asked quietly, odd. She looked at him now, her gaze sharp. Yes, because without memory, we are nothing. Without taste, we forget who we are. Her words struck him harder than any weapon. He had fought to protect planets, to guard borders, but what she said carried a deeper truth. Survival meant more than breathing. It meant remembering. Suddenly, comma. The fire crackled and a soldier's alarm whistle pierced the night. Arden jumped to his feet. Shadows moved at the edge of the camp. Figures approached, crouched low, their weapons glinting. The girl stood too, clutching her bundle. Her face was pale but steady. Enemy scouts. Arden signaled silently to his men. They took positions, rifles raised. The refugees huddled together in fear. The air grew tense. But the scouts did not attack immediately. Instead, one of them sniffed the air. A cruel smile spread across his scarred face. I smelled it from the forest, he sneered in broken human speech. Food, real food. Who dares to cook here? His eyes fell on the girl. Arden stepped forward, weapon ready. She is under my protection. The scout laughed. You think a soldier's words matter? We kill, we take, we eat. That is the law of war. The girl's grip on her bundle tightened. Arden saw her knuckles turn white, but instead of fear, her eyes blazed. No, she said suddenly, her voice stronger than before. Food is not for killing. It is for living. The enemy scout blinked, surprised that the silent alien girl dared to speak. He spat on the ground. Then cook for us, little flame, or we burn your camp. The camp fell into tense silence. All eyes turned to her. Soldiers gritted their teeth, ready to fire. Refugees trembled. But the girl stepped forward slowly. She held out her bundle, her voice calm. I will cook. But if you taste it, you must promise something. You must leave this camp unharmed. The scouts laughed cruelly. You think soup will buy your lives? Arden's hand tightened on his rifle. He was ready to fight. But then he saw her face. Calm, certain. She began to work. With quick hands, she placed herbs and dried powders into the pot. The steam rose again, rich and golden. The scent filled the air stronger than before, glowing faintly in the firelight. Even the enemy scouts paused, their cruel smiles fading as their noses twitched. She stirred, whispered something in her own language, then held out the first bowl. The scarred scout grabbed it and drank greedily. Then he froze. His eyes widened. For a moment, the cruelty in his face broke into something else. Memory. He whispered something in his own tongue, something almost gentle before quickly hiding it with a snarl. But Arden saw. The girl's food had touched even him. The scout dropped the bowl. We will return, he growled. You cannot stop us with soup. He motioned to his men and they melted back into the night. When the danger was gone, the camp exhaled in relief. But Arden's heart was heavy. He knew they would come back. And next time, they might not leave so easily. The girl sat back by the fire, her hands trembling slightly now. I told you, she whispered. Food is life. Even enemies remember for a moment. Arden crouched beside her. He looked at her small frame, her fragile bundle of spices, and felt something powerful. She was not just a refugee. She was not just a cook. She was a keeper of memory, a living flame in a world of ashes. But Arden also knew the truth. Flames attract shadows. And the more she cooked, the more dangerous their future would become. The enemy watches. The camp did not rest the next day. Though the enemy scouts had gone, their shadows lingered in everyone's mind. Refugees whispered in fear. Soldiers kept weapons ready, and every sound in the forest made hearts race. But the alien girl still cooked. At sunrise, she gathered scraps again. Hard bread, dried beans, thin strips of meat. She lit the fire, added her herbs, and stirred the pot with steady hands. The steam rose, carrying that same warm scent through the cold morning air. This time, the soldiers were the first to line up. Even tough men who had eaten rations for years found themselves waiting like children. When they tasted her food, their stiff shoulders relaxed and laughter returned in small bursts. Captain Arden watched carefully. He saw the power spreading. The girl's cooking was no longer only survival. It was building something stronger. It was stitching people together, human and alien alike. But far beyond the camp, in the forest shadows, other eyes watched. The scouts who had tasted her food returned to their commander. They spoke of the strange girl, the fire, and the soup that carried memory. Their commander, a tall warlord with jagged armor and cruel eyes, listened in silence. Food changed them, one scout said. Even I felt it. For a moment, I remembered my home, my mother's cooking. The warlord struck him across the face. Fool, do not speak of weakness. His voice was sharp. But you are right. Something dangerous is there. Hope. And hope must be crushed. He raised his blade, pointing it toward the camp. We will watch. And when the time is right, we will strike. The girl will be taken. Her gift will serve us, or she will die. The scouts bowed, their faces grim. Back in the camp, the girl knew nothing of this. She only sat near the fire, stirring quietly, her bundle of spices always close. But Arden noticed her eyes wandering sometimes to the trees, as if she felt something moving in the shadows. She was too calm for a child, too careful. He wondered if she had always lived like this, waiting for danger to come. That night, when the camp began to quiet, Arden approached her again. You know they will return, he said softly. She nodded. I know. And yet you still cook. She stirred the pot, her face calm. Yes. Why? She looked at him finally, her dark eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. Because fear feeds them, but food feeds us. If we stop cooking, if we stop living, then they already win. Arden stared at her. She was young, fragile, yet her words carried the weight of an elder. She was not only feeding bodies, she was fighting with flavor, waging a war with memory. But warlords did not care about hope. They cared about power. And Arden knew sooner or later, her gift would draw them like wolves to blood. Later that night, while most slept, Arden heard movement again. He rose silently, rifle in hand, and scanned the darkness. The girl was already awake, sitting near the fire, her bundle clutched to her chest. You hear it too, Arden whispered. She nodded slowly. From the forest came faint voices, then silence. Watching, waiting. Arden tightened his grip on the rifle. They are testing us, measuring our strength. The girl lowered her eyes. They want me. Her words were not a question. She already knew. Arden crouched beside her. And they will not have you. Not while I live. She looked at him, and for the first time, her lips curved into the smallest smile. Not joy, but trust. A fragile thread binding them. But trust could not stop war. The next day, scouts were spotted again at the forest edge. Soldiers chased them, but they disappeared like smoke. Refugees grew restless, whispering of raids. Some blamed the girl. She brought this on us, one alien muttered. The food is a curse, enemies smell it. They will kill us because of her. Others shook their heads. No, she saved us. Without her, we would still be dying inside. The camp split. Half feared her, half defended her. And the girl, she only cooked. She did not argue, did not plead. She simply placed bowls in the hands of those who hated her, and they fell silent after tasting. Even those who cursed her could not deny the power of her food. But Arden saw the storm building. Fear and hope clashed in the camp, while real enemies waited outside. That night, when the fire burned low, the warlord's scouts returned to the forest's edge. They watched the camp silently, their eyes fixed on the girl. "She is the flame," one whispered, "the flame that feeds them." The commander's voice was cold. "Then we will smother it." Inside the camp, the girl stirred her pot, unaware of how many eyes desired her capture. She only whispered to the fire in her own tongue, a prayer from her lost world. Arden listened quietly, not understanding the words but feeling their weight. He knew the truth now. The enemy was not only watching. They were waiting. And when they came, the silent girl's gift would decide more than survival. It would decide whether hope could stand against the hunger of war. The Kitchen Alliance. The attack came at dawn. The sky was gray, the air heavy with smoke when the first scream tore through the camp. Scouts on the edge shouted warnings. Shadows burst from the trees. Enemy raiders armed with blades and rifles rushing like wolves toward their prey. Chaos erupted. Refugees stumbled, children cried, and soldiers scrambled to form lines. The enemy commander, tall and armored, raised his weapon high and roared, "Burn it all, take the girl alive." The soldiers knew at once who he meant. The Flame Keeper. The cook. Captain Arden stood firm. He raised his rifle, firing into the charging line. "Protect the camp, protect her." "Ki?" Girl did not run. She clutched her bundle of spices tightly, her dark eyes glowing with quiet fire. Fear touched her face, yes, but she did not crumble. She moved toward the fire pit instead of away. Arden saw her. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "Cooking," she whispered. The camp shook with battle, blades clashing, rifles firing. But the girl dropped herbs into the pot, poured water, and fed the fire with dry wood. Flames leapt high. She grabbed a jar of bright red powder and threw it into the boiling pot. The water hissed, steam exploding upward in a thick cloud. The wind carried it across the battlefield. The raiders coughed, blinded. The steam stung their eyes and clogged their throats. Soldiers seized the chance, striking back with fury. Arden's eyes widened. She had turned the kitchen into a weapon. But she was not done. She grabbed burning sticks from the fire and tossed them into dry hay piles. Smoke rose, covering the camp, confusing the enemy. Soldiers knew the paths, but raiders stumbled, hacking, blindly. "Forward!" Arden roared. His men pushed, their courage rising. Through the smoke. The girl moved quickly, pouring broth into bowls and handing them to wounded fighters. A sip restored strength, gave tired arms new fire. She worked, like a commander of her own, leading not with weapons but with food and flame. Refugees too began to act. Mothers carried water. Children threw rocks from the edges. Old men sharpened sticks and stood guard. The camp was no longer broken. It was alive, united, fighting together. The commander of the raiders growled in fury. His eyes burned as he saw what was happening. One small girl, a cook, was turning his attack into chaos. He stormed forward, swinging his blade. Soldiers fell back under his strength. His path cut straight toward her. Arden saw him. His heart froze. "Stay back," he shouted at the girl, rushing to intercept. But she did not run. She stood by her fire, lifting a ladle filled with boiling broth. When the warlord swung his blade, she flung the liquid into his face. He roared in pain, stumbling, blinded by scalding broth and burning spice. Arden struck then, slamming his rifle's stock into the warlord's chest, knocking him to the ground. "You will not touch her," he growled. The battle raged around them, but momentum had shifted. Raiders, choking in smoke, blinded by steam and confused by the fire, began to retreat. Soldiers pushed harder. Refugees joined in, striking with whatever they had. Finally, with a horn's blast, the raiders fell back into the trees, dragging their injured commander with them. The camp stood in silence, broken only by the crackle of flames. Bodies lay still. Smoke drifted in the air, but the camp was not destroyed. It had survived. At the center stood the girl, her hands blackened with ash, her bundle of spices still clutched to her chest. Her pot of broth boiled quietly, as if mocking the chaos around it. Arden walked to her, breathing hard, his face smeared with dirt. He stared at her for a long moment. "You just turned a kitchen into a battlefield." She lowered her eyes, her voice soft. "I did what I could. I cannot fight with guns. But fire and food, they listened to me." Arden felt something heavy in his chest, not fear, not anger, but respect. She had stood her ground when even trained soldiers faltered. She had given them not only tactics, but spirit. The refugees slowly gathered. Some still feared her, whispering about magic. But others looked at her with awe. To them, she was no longer just a quiet girl. She was the flame that had saved them. One child tugged at her sleeve. "You saved us," the child whispered. The girl shook her head. "No, we saved each other." She looked around at humans and aliens standing side by side. Food gave us strength. Fire gave us courage. Together, we fought. Her words spread like warmth through the crowd. Soldiers nodded. Refugees lifted, their heads higher. A strange thing had been born in that fire. A new alliance. Arden placed a hand on her shoulder. "From now on," he said, his voice steady, "you don't cook alone. You cook for all of us, and we will protect you." The girl looked at him, her dark eyes softening. For the first time, she seemed to let the weight of her past slip a little. For the first time, she allowed hope to rest on her face. But Arden knew one thing. The raiders had been beaten, not broken. They would return, stronger, angrier. And when they did, the camp would need more than rifles. It would need the Flame Keeper and her kitchen alliance. Asterisk. The invitation. The camp was quiet after the battle. Smoke drifted in thin trails above burned wood, and the ground was littered with broken weapons. The raiders were gone, but their memory lingered like scars on the soil. The refugees moved slowly, patching torn tents, burying the dead, and comforting the wounded. It was not victory in the grand sense, but it was survival. And survival felt like a miracle. At the center of it all sat the alien girl, near her fire, her bundle of spices resting beside her. Her hands were still blackened with ash, her face pale from exhaustion, but her eyes glowed faintly, alive. She stirred her pot once more. This time, not to fight, not to confuse enemies, but to heal. The broth was warm and simple. Soldiers came forward one by one and she fed them. Wounded refugees sipped it and sighed in relief. Children clutched bowls in small hands, smiling even with tear-streaked faces. The firelight wrapped around them all, carrying a strange peace through the camp. Captain Arden stood nearby, silent, watching. He had seen battles won with guns, fleets, and strategies, but never before had he seen a victory born from a kitchen fire. When she looked up, he finally walked over. His boots crunched softly on the dirt as he stopped in front of her. "You should rest," he said. She shook her head. "Not yet. They need this more than I need sleep." Her voice was steady, though her body trembled with weariness. Arden crouched beside her, lowering his voice. "You've given them something I could not. Not weapons, not orders, hope. That is more powerful than any gun." She glanced at him, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Hope is fragile. It can break. Then we protect it," Arden said firmly. The girl fell silent. She looked at her pot, then at the bundle of spices. Finally, her eyes lifted to him, again. "When the raiders come back, they will want me. You know this." "I know," Arden admitted. His jaw tightened. "That's why I can't leave you here. You don't belong in the ashes of a refugee camp. You belong where your gift can grow. Her brows furrowed. Where would that be? Arden studied her for a moment, then gave the smallest smile. My kitchen. The words hung in the air, almost strange after the smoke of battle. Her eyes widened faintly. Your kitchen? Yes, Arden said. His voice was steady, full of conviction. Come with me, to the human outpost, to the ships. Cook for us, not as a servant, not as property, but as a partner. We fight with weapons, but you fight with flame. Together, maybe we can change more than just battles. Maybe we can change hearts. The girl stared at him, silent as always, but something in her expression shifted. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak but could not find the words. For the first time in years, she felt something inside her chest she thought she had lost. Choice. She looked around the camp. Refugees still lined up for bowls. Children laughed softly as they licked their spoons. Soldiers, human and alien, sat side by side without hate, sharing food. Her food. Her flame. Tears burned in her eyes, though she did not let them fall. I'm not strong, she whispered finally. Arden shook his head. You are stronger than most soldiers I've known. You carry your people's memory in every dish. That strength cannot be measured in muscle. The girl looked down at her bundle, touching the jars with gentle fingers. Then she looked back up at him. If I come with you, will they accept me? Arden smiled faintly. They already have. Look. She turned. The refugees were watching her, not with fear, not with suspicion, but with gratitude. Soldiers gave small nods of respect. Even children waved shyly. She had been silent for so long. But now, she was seen. Slowly, She rose to her feet. Her knees wobbled. But she stood, tall, clutching her spices close. She nodded once. Then I will come. Arden rose too. Good. Then it settled. As they walked together through the camp, people stepped aside, giving space but never turning away. For the first time, the girl did not feel like a shadow. She felt like a flame walking among them. At the edge of the camp, Arden paused. He looked at the horizon, where smoke still hung, but sunlight was breaking through. There's still a war out there, he said. It won't be easy. The girl looked at the same horizon. War destroys, she whispered. But food? Food can heal. Let us see if it can heal even a galaxy. Arden glanced at her, then nodded firmly. Together. They walked forward, human soldier and silent alien cook side by side. Behind them, the camp slowly came alive again. Ahead of them, an uncertain road waited. But for the first time, the girl allowed herself to believe that her fire could burn not just for survival, but for change. And as she stepped toward Arden's world, she whispered softly, almost to herself, I don't talk much, human, but I can cook. This time, it was not a whisper of survival. It was a promise.